Next, our journey to the west. Let me read a bit. So after arriving in Hawaii on the 17th, at that time, the time difference was a bit confusing. The 17th, we had already arrived there. Then on June 18th, the first teaching, His Holiness at Nechung Monastery bestowed the Bodhisattva vows to everyone because this was the first session and also our first teaching in the West. At that time, the monastery organizers first sang some auspicious verses for His Holiness, including their local ones and Buddhist ones, some auspicious verses. Then their steward, also a Westerner, made the following opening remarks. He said this: "We have incredibly unique karma to be together here on this auspicious occasion. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok is unable to stay for an extended period of time the next 4 days because we started teaching on the 18th, should be 16, 17, 18, 18th, then 19, 20, 21 departed on the 22nd, 4 days, in Hawaii altogether for 4 days. So we shall fully embrace the Dharma teachings during the course of the next short but precious 4 days and make a firm commitment to uphold and practice the teachings, since this opportunity is quite rare." At that time, he roughly said these things. Then he also introduced, saying that in the land of Tibet, to receive the Dharma directly from Khenpo Rinpoche, pilgrims must endure great hardship and take a long journey from India or other parts of the land of Tibet to the area where he resides, enduring much suffering. Actually, at that time at the academy, there were also these from India. At that time, Khenpo Namdrol and others all came from India. His Holiness taught them for 100 days the teachings of Khandro Nyingthig. This was before, should be 1989, 1991, 1992. These times there were also those who came from India. Then many came from the Han region and Tibetan areas. Moreover, where His Holiness was located was very poor, very cold, our Larong. At that time, others evaluated it as very cold, very poor. It is not only quite hard to go there, but even more challenging to stay there, because the place where Rinpoche lives is so cold and impoverished. Nonetheless, individuals who seek the Dharma are willing to go through a great deal of difficulty just to be able to hear teachings from His Holiness in person. This is what he introduced at that time. He said, "Thanks to our past aspirations and prayers, all of us here are able to meet Yijin Norbu with such ease and sit here comfortably, seeing Rinpoche's majestic face and hearing his nectar-like Dharma teaching. This is also due to past aspirations, the circumstances from one's own prayers in past lives. Otherwise, it's not so easy. Actually, truly, those who met His Holiness at that time still had karmic connection, including all of you present here. On one hand, people who met His Holiness still have great karmic connection. Secondly, I also think if you encounter this book, you've basically formed an excellent connection with His Holiness's excellent teachings. So in the preface, I also said, if you haven't met His Holiness before, if you basically take this book and read it well, study it well, you can possibly receive these teachings before His Holiness with no difference. It's just that the time was 1993 when it was said. The person was present, but now it's just like the Buddha too. At that time, the Buddha was alive when he spoke, but over 2,500 years later, these teachings we're listening to now, what the Buddha taught on site at that time, later recorded. So there's no difference in this. He said at that time, even though you lead a busy life and have a lot of obligations, actually Westerners at that time felt especially busy, having many, many important things to do. But these few days, you must put everything on hold for these few days so that you can benefit fully from this series of teachings. Actually, when I heard his words at that time, it seemed I felt he spoke very correctly, because they might meet His Holiness for only 4 days in this lifetime, letting them put down many trivial matters. At that time, there were quite a number of people, quite many for that locality. The time to be with such a revered master as Rinpoche is short but so precious that we must abandon worldly ambitions and give the teachings our undivided attention. Especially before a great master like His Holiness, it's extremely rare. Also, be aware that a great number of Buddhists are here together to receive the Dharma, and all of us need to maintain a virtuous intention with the same hope that the Dharma we're going to receive will be firmly upheld and extensively disseminated. This was their aspiration at that time. At this time, after the host finished speaking at the commencement of the transmission, sitting graciously with compassion on the Dharma throne, Yijin Norbu spontaneously sang an auspicious verse that we had never heard before. It goes like this: "The dome of the sky is full of rainbows spread by auspicious celestial maidens. The ground is filled with auspicious people who enjoy the 10 virtues. The location completes the auspicious, peaceful, and wrathful mandalas. May auspiciousness be perfected and ever increasing." Here, in each line, there is auspiciousness. In the second phrase, there's auspiciousness. In the last verse, at the end, there's auspiciousness. This is a special rhetorical device in Tibetan. In Tibetan, specifically in poetics, there is this, for example, in each verse, adding auspiciousness, ending with auspiciousness, or at the end of each verse, there's auspiciousness, having the same word added like this, but the meanings are all different. Generally, when we write this, it's quite laborious. When we studied poetics before, for example, if you want to do this, the entire content requires thinking for a very long time. But at that time, His Holiness seemed to do it especially easily. His Holiness generally prepared that day. His Holiness didn't have anything special. Normally, we would record some things beforehand. For example, for longer teachings, we'd record for him, give him the recorder, then he would listen and teach. But that day, he said no need for anything. Today is transmitting Bodhisattva vows. Very simple. Then His Holiness chanted directly. After chanting, he wished everyone Tashi Delek. His Holiness used to say auspiciousness and good fortune, auspiciousness and good fortune. Tashi Delek means auspiciousness and good fortune. Then he began to explain. You have sung some auspicious verses for me before you received the teaching. Therefore, I also chanted an auspicious verse for you before I impart the Dharma teachings. What does this verse mean? It has 4 aspects. The opening sentence states that the auspicious celestial maidens are deeply joyful about this special and auspicious occasion. This we also mention later. Here there is one, should be an earth goddess, an auspicious goddess. She apparently often manifests various auspicious signs. So they spread colorful clouds and dazzling rainbows that fill the entirety of space. Rainbows swirl, pervading the firmament. Often rainbows, it's not very unusual. But when we came, it's not written here, when we just arrived, near his monastery, there was an especially beautiful rainbow. They said the next morning there was also one, but the next mornings I didn't see it. Anyway, this rainbow, perhaps they are the Rainbow City. They often have them too. This is not anything special. His Holiness said the first is this auspiciousness. The second sentence means that after turning the wheel of Dharma at everyone will delightedly carry out the 10 virtuous deeds. Perhaps most people are like this. But generally on the seaside, they also eat fish. I heard there are also quite many who don't practice virtue. The third is that Hawaii completes the signs of the peaceful mandala because it is a place like the blissful pure land of Sukhavati. It is also endowed with the signs of the wrathful mandala because it features fiery volcanoes. Actually, when His Holiness taught, sometimes it seemed all these, even if we deliberately, perhaps paying special attention, writing for a long time, we might not be able to write it. The last sentence points out that this location is quite fortunate. May this auspiciousness last, spread, and ever increase. May everything be complete, always fortunate and sublime. So much auspiciousness. I did not prepare this verse in advance. It just came to me on the spur of the moment. I was instantly inspired after hearing your beautiful, and I spontaneously sang this song of good fortune for you. It was such an auspicious melody at that time. Fortunately, at that time, there was still a recording, otherwise we might not have found it. At that time, we still worked very hard, feeling His Holiness's teachings were still very precious. Then hearing this, everyone was thrilled upon hearing this, as Cho Jae's words were like rays of warm sunlight shining into everyone's heart. Sometimes His Holiness's infectious quality when he spoke. Generally, Westerners are quite rational, not easily moved, not very emotional. It seems there's a network problem now beginning. A few peacocks were leisurely roaming on the lawn in front of the temple. There were several peacocks, quite timely made piercing calls that seemed to pass the mood on to everyone. Actually, about those peacocks, we're not exaggerating here, around that monastery there were especially many. A few years ago, some Dharma friends went there. Then I asked, are there peacocks? They said there are still some now. There are also some. Following that, Yijin Norbu officially bestowed the Bodhisattva vow. When transmitting the Bodhisattva vows, the same as every time His Holiness taught. Here I won't recite the homage verses, any of them. Actually, His Holiness in the latter part of the entire journey abroad, before teaching, often recited some homage verses. But this, we at the very beginning, this is the first teaching. Here there's a homage verse. At the end there's a dedication. It seems there is. Later, whether we included it or not, I forgot. At that time, the idea was like this. Then in the middle parts, including His Holiness's 10 stations, these homage verses are all omitted. Originally, when teaching, every time there were some, but we didn't include these. First, he paid homage to the root guru. Then he paid homage to Buddha Shakyamuni. And after that, he paid homage to Guru Padmasambhava, then Guru Padmasambhava, Longchenpa, and Mipham Rinpoche, as well as the three roots and Manjushri. Finally, there was a prayer for listening to the Dharma, not that one, there's another one. Yes, the last one is not that. It's his verse, summoning sentient beings to listen to the Dharma here. After His Holiness spoke these words, for the benefit of limitless sentient beings, he asked everyone to generate supreme bodhicitta. Then His Holiness said, "Today I am extremely pleased and happy because all the circumstances for the Dharma teaching are perfectly gathered, including the place, the time, the teacher, the retinue, and the teaching. These 5 perfections are complete." First, he explained the 5 perfections. You might also feel this time that when transcribing someone's teaching notes, achieving this level is very difficult. So with His Holiness's teaching, I haven't made special adjustments. If there are slight word issues, I've adjusted slightly, but otherwise these are his exact words. It's like if we first write a draft and then read it here, we might not write it so completely. In the past, when I was at His Holiness's side, at that time I didn't feel it was so complete. But starting last year when I worked on this, I truly felt amazed myself. He explained the 5 perfections this way: the perfect time. I am particularly delighted about the time. According to the Tibetan calendar, this month is the Sagadawa month, during which the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and nirvana took place. This is the month when the Buddha's enlightened activities began, and we often speak of Sagadawa month, as everyone knows. So it is the most auspicious period of the year. I am also pleased that in this month, right before I came here, we held a grand Dharma assembly of Sukhavati, in which some 300,000 Tibetans and more than 10,000 monastics gathered. It was at Larung. At that time, the numbers we mentioned earlier weren't stated clearly, just hundreds of thousands. Here, His Holiness said 300,000. But later, there were different accounts of this number. However, His Holiness's account is quite consistent with what's in his extensive biography now, made the aspiration to be reborn in Sukhavati. This auspicious gathering marked a favorable beginning because everyone present planted the seed to be reborn in the western Pure Land of Sukhavati. This was right before my departure, so his perfection of time extends from this. Sagadawa month is when connections with His Holiness should be formed, including when he went to the West. These beings also formed virtuous connections and should have certain causes for rebirth in the Pure Land, the perfect place. Then just after that gathering, I came to the United States, one of the most powerful countries in the world. In the world, America is one of the most powerful countries, to teach you the Dharma. This interdependent arising is very auspicious. So His Holiness said, I'm also very joyful. This is perfection of place, then perfection of teaching. In terms of the Dharma, I am especially pleased. Why is that? Although there are many good and wonderful religions in the world that bring people peace and happiness, of course, some good religions might, but some religions may not necessarily. Being Buddhists, we are very fortunate to be able to encounter the Dharma and be aware of its value in that the Dharma can bring us permanent peace and happiness. Such awareness is a sign of understanding the significance of the excellent eon. Understanding the Dharma means knowing what luminosity is. Most Buddhists are well aware of this important fact, but this understanding does not come from blind faith. Actually, this statement is very important. Those of us who study the Dharma, not just as practitioners or Buddhists, but it should be about the benefits that Buddhism brings. This is very important. Although the Hinayana path that leads to self-liberation is also worthwhile, its motivation is only for oneself. Comparatively, the Mahayana pursuit is much grander because it is motivated by the mind to benefit all sentient beings instead of just focusing on personal liberation. Therefore, we are very fortunate to follow the Mahayana path. Especially, it is even more fortunate for us to meet the Vajrayana or secret Mantrayana, which is the pinnacle of the Mahayana that has to recognize the nature of mind and to quickly achieve fully enlightened Buddhahood in a single lifetime. Encountering it is also extremely fortunate. We are so lucky to have all these coincidences. So this is perfection of teaching. Now, each of us, it seems we also feel that listening in His Holiness's presence, we actually possess all these conditions, which is also perfect. Then perfection of teacher. His Holiness spoke about himself. Personally, I encountered Buddhism at birth, began to give Dharma teachings at the age of 14, and have been carrying. At that time, His Holiness was 60 years old. He had been teaching for 46 years. His Holiness later passed into parinirvana at 71, so 57 years. His Holiness taught for 57 years in his life. Some of our Dharma teachers say, I've already been teaching for 10 years. I've already been teaching for so many years, they say. But you might say, His Holiness is different from us. His Holiness is His Holiness after all. I'm an ordinary person. You might interpret it this way. Then he said, up until now, I used to be quite adept at teaching. However, now as I'm getting older, my health has declined and my eyes no longer see texts clearly. Therefore, I feel that the quality of my teaching decreases in such a situation. His Holiness said very humbly, if it were perfection of teacher, the teaching would be very impressive, but perhaps His Holiness was showing humility here. I had very little chance to learn about politics, technologies, and traditions of different Western countries. I do not even know the eating habits. Therefore, I am a little embarrassed that the way I explain the Dharma may fail your expectations and cannot satisfy your interest. At that time, His Holiness could also give others. Indeed, it was his first time going to Western countries, so perhaps in some respects His Holiness was like, I'm a bit embarrassed. I can only explain that this is the result of the karma from our previous, from the Buddhist perspective. It's also past life connections. If there are any mistakes in what I say, you can correct me. This is what His Holiness said about perfection of teaching, then perfection of retinue. Today, most of you are Buddhists from different countries and nationalities, and you all have a certain level of faith and intelligence. So this is perfection of retinue. These are the 5 perfections. Well, let me speak to here. Let me see. How about next? Let me check the time. We can read a bit more below. Below is the common preliminary practices. Before I get into the main topic, let me first emphasize the difficulty of obtaining a human body. Now that we have already gained the precious human body that has the freedom and potential to practice the Dharma, it is very rare. Why? First of all, it is rare in terms of its cause. This human body is the result of accumulating merit, abstaining from non-virtue, and practicing virtue throughout numerous lifetimes. So it wasn't obtained simply or easily. It is not obtained through other means. He explains from 3 perspectives. Secondly, this can be illustrated by an analogy. It's also extremely rare. If we throw beans onto a wall, the chance of a single bean sticking on the wall is very slim. However, the chance of getting a human body is even less than that. Very difficult to obtain. Thirdly, a human body is very rare in terms of its quantity. It's also extremely rare. The Buddha taught in the sutras that the number of people who practice non-virtuous activities is equivalent to the number of dust particles on the entire earth, while the number of people who have attained the perfect human body and practice virtuous deeds is equivalent to the number of dust particles on a thumbnail. So from these three perspectives of analogy, cause, and quantity, having obtained such a rare human body is of great significance. If you want to gain long life, health, wealth, and fame in this life, it is possible for you to have all of these by relying on this human body. Moreover, if you want to engage in Dharma practice for the welfare of future lifetimes and to eventually attain the inconceivable Buddhahood that is free from any suffering, both physically and mentally, it is also possible for you to accomplish this goal by utilizing this body. However, while you are endowed with such a precious body, if you do not seize the opportunity by all means to practice the Dharma, you may quickly lose it because death may come at any time. This is the teaching on impermanence of life. At the moment of death, you will certainly drift to other realms under the force of karma. This is the infallible karmic law. At that time, there would be no freedom to practice virtuous deeds and no opportunity to seek happiness. This is samsara, the repetitive cycle of frustration and suffering. Therefore, when you are still free and at ease right at this moment, you should practice pure and wholesome deeds. These are the 4 common preliminary practices explained earlier. As for how to perform virtuous deeds, our root teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, out of his great loving kindness and compassion, taught many methods and compared them respectively to ordinary metal, gold, diamonds, and wish-fulfilling jewels. Among all these practices, the most supreme are those that are like wish-fulfilling jewels. So, out of so many methods that the Buddha had taught, which one do you prefer? The average, the medium, the better, or the best? At that time, everyone, generally Westerners, sometimes like to ask questions. They said, we like the very best, like the wish-fulfilling jewel just mentioned, the very best. Then His Holiness said, well then, since you want the very best, among the Buddha's 84,000 teachings, there is nothing better than bodhicitta and dzogchen. Bodhicitta is a practice that all Mahayana practitioners can practice. As for dzogchen, is a Vajrayana teaching of secret mantra, which does belong to the Mahayana teaching, but can be practiced only by those of particularly sharp faculties and is not applicable to all Mahayana practitioners. Do you want to practice both or just one, both dzogchen and bodhicitta? Actually, what he said here is very important. At that time, they all answered. Some laughed, some, but most people raised their hands saying, we want to practice both. If we want the best, we'll practice both. Then His Holiness replied, yeah, that's very good that you want to practice both is excellent. Yeah, actually, most of the great masters from Tibetan areas practice both. This statement is very important. I hope that most of us here today should emphasize these two practices. Throughout one's life, practice both dzogchen and bodhicitta. Actually, His Holiness earlier, like watching a movie, skillfully led us into the most important and profound practices. The great masters of Tibetan Buddhism, indeed all those we've known and relied upon, all these great masters place the highest emphasis on bodhicitta and dzogchen. So let's look at those of us here today who call ourselves lineage disciples of His Holiness. What you value most in your heart, is it bodhicitta and dzogchen? In Tibetan Buddhism, most practice these two. There are none who practice only one. If you also make such an aspiration, it's excellent, truly excellent. So today here, I'll first teach everyone about bodhicitta and also confer the bodhisattva vow. His Holiness then began to teach about the benefits of bodhicitta and confer the bodhisattva vow. That's all for today.
Bandara Bandara